Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast, episode number 20. I am your host, the mysterious podcaster. No, it's Osiris Prime. We're coming from you from the GWW network, our new home. And it is, obviously, as you can see, October 31st, Halloween. Yes, we're doing a Halloween episode, and I guess some of the things we'll talk about might be kind of scary. Oh, there we go.
Oh, nice. A Mario hat.
Or beret, I'm not sure. There we go, Mario hat. Hey, it's not Cappy, though. That's all right. We'll get to that, though, here in a minute. So, with me tonight, as you can see, is Mr. Swissguard, a.k.a. Mario. Swiss, how's it going?
Not bad. I think my kids had a good haul, and I've already been rating the trick-or-treat bag, so
Nice.
it kind of eases the pain of having to go out and buy a bunch of costumes and whatnot.
It's true. And we also have Mr. DBQ Hams.
Prime, I can't stop laughing at your mask.
I'm going to have to take it off because it really hurts.
Because it is like partly like a comic book mask, which makes sense on the GWW, but also it's like sexy Catwoman, but
Yeah,
not quite proportioned to your head. So, yeah, maybe it's the beard, the juxtaposition, So yes, this is a great way to start a podcast about probably three of the biggest games of the year by talking about a man with a small mask and a big head. So,
Right.
which is appropriate for Mario, I suppose.
Yeah. All right. So tonight we're gonna do something a little bit different. We're kind of merge our two items that we usually do. Our topic of the week. Oh man, this is really hurting. The topic of the week, and which we usually just pick a topic and talk about it for like 30-40 minutes, and also our playlist where we go through what we've been playing for the past week or so. So as probably everybody knows that's into gaming and all things geek, October 27th, last Friday, there was a what do we want to say, a nuclear video game drop here of games. So we had Mario Odyssey, we had Assassin's Creed Origin, and we had Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus. I just finally figured out what the whole title was. All dropped on the same day. And each of us have played at least one of those. There's a couple of us that have played two of us have played one of the game here. And I think that's what we're going to start off with here is Mario Odyssey. I believe, DB, you've played that.
Yes, I have. I've played it, and I've watched my kids sink a ton of hours into it over the course of this past weekend as well. So, yeah, I've played it only through the first couple of worlds, right? You get multiple different kingdoms. Some of this people could have seen in the Nintendo World Championships, some of those levels, so it's not necessarily big surprises. I think the initial surprise that I had was how fluid things felt. It just felt enjoyable. I mean, there was just a childlike awe and wonder to kind of digging around and playing. The return to kind of the open world Mario aspect from 64 and Sunshine and Galaxy, that you weren't progressing to the end of a level. You could just keep digging around and continuing to explore. And I think that was the thing that drew me in. It was, I started early on a Saturday morning, and little did I know that an hour and a half had gone by, because I just, you find one moon and you can just, that there's something up over this, or if you could make that jump, or, and so yes, I've started playing it. I've been able to suss out a few tips from my kids as well along the way, like being able to throw Cappy and jump on it to be able to make additional jumps. But I have myself on my file have not gotten nearly as far as my kids have. So, Prime, have you had a chance to dig in more than the first couple worlds, or how far are you?
Actually, I forgot one thing before we start here. We're going to try not to do spoilers here as much as we can. We're going to try to not talk about the story as much, which Mario, I mean, come on, save the princess. I mean, I think everybody knows that. That's pretty much a staple in Mario. But we won't go into like too many details on things, especially with Assassin's Creed and Wolfenstein. We'll try to keep it to like game mechanics and kind of overall like high view of these games. So, but yes, I've gotten through. I think I'm on World 4 now, or I'm about to jump into World 4. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this game, just like you said. Like it's like your kid again, and I've seen this a lot too in other podcasts and forums and articles and stuff. And, you just sit down there. It's just like when you're a kid when you first started playing one of the Marios. Obviously, maybe for us and for me, it's I go all the way back to the original Mario Brothers. Maybe Super Mario Brothers. I didn't really play too much of Mario Brothers, just Mario Brothers. But yeah, I mean it's. The controls are great. I mean, it's like you said, it's very fluid. It moves really great. It looks great. I mean, obviously it's for Nintendo. They're always going to make Mario look, the best that you can. And like you said, trying to go and find the moons, here and you see something in the distance, kind of like a Crackdown kind of a feel, like when you're chasing the orbs. This actually kind of draws me in to go and get those moons, which I really like. When you went to go get the stars in like the original Super Mario 64. I wasn't too big into finding like all of them or as many as I could. I just kind of found as much, however you needed for the next level to get into. But this one, I'm like, I just keep going. It's just fun to find these things, and you can do, there's a variety of way that you can, look for something, and there's different kind of puzzle aspects, I guess, if you want to say, that come into play. I've been to the city world, I think once, but I was kind of stuck on this rooftop. I didn't know how to get out of there, or if I probably needed like another costume or cap or something to get past that part. But I know in one of the levels there is like a human person, and that's still kind of weird to see like a regular person and then Mario next to him, and Mario's like a caricature of a regular human. But that kind of breaks it a little bit for me. But I mean, the game is still like tons of fun. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I think one of the other things that it's pretty cool is when you kind of go into that 2D world. And I don't know if you mentioned that before because I was changing back to my regular self here, but yeah, it's pretty cool when you kind of you're in this 3D world, and then all of a sudden you see like a little pillar or even like a wall, and it's just like 2D, and you can go into warp pipe, and it goes into the old Super Mario Brothers 2 2D world. So that's pretty cool. I really like that. I'm really enjoying that part.
I think that shift in perspective is really, it kind of mixes it up a little bit. Again, I haven't encountered a whole lot where gameplay wise, it's really challenging when you go into the 2D world, but
Yeah.
I think it creates, it gives you a break. It gives you, you come into that 2D world with Mario, pixelated 8-bit Mario wearing whatever costume that he had on at the time. There are some in that first kind of desert world, right, where you're up on the side of the pyramid, and there's hidden passages that you can sneak around on the side.
Yep.
That seem disguised, but as you get further, that perspective I've noticed continues to change. Right, in the water world, you're no longer on the side of a wall, but if you go down a pipe, now you're playing on the floor of the ocean. So it switches perspective there, and and it again even changes the camera perspective, because it's no longer kind of the straight on side angle that we're used to with 2D Mario, but it almost comes down in a top down view, and so it shifts that perspective, and it almost makes it look kind of puzzle game like, as you're jumping around and sliding as 2D Mario. So I think that it's a nice change. It's a nice little mix up. It keeps the variety, and I think that variety is probably the biggest key piece of this game, is that there is, by the sheer lack of any meaningful story, there's no real reason to try to speed yourself ahead to the next world, right? That it's about taking time and exploring the world, playing around in the spaces that they've created, not necessarily chasing Bowser and the evil rabbits that he has with him, to the end of the next world, right? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for getting the in-game lore correct.
The Drooplas or Drooplings or something. I forgot what they're called.
But yeah, I think that's I guess that the overall point there is that it encourages you to take your time and to figure out the nooks and crannies, rather than in Super Mario 64 where you need X number of of stars to get to the next door. This is it kind of gives you an idea of how many moons you need to get to the boss or to trigger the boss, but at the same time there's so many more that you'll kind of just stumble across along the way, and it continues to reward you. And I think the thing I've really enjoyed about the moon aspect, and I'll be interested in your perspective, Prime, is the health system. That I can be making a hard jump or struggling to get past an enemy, but I can see that moon, and I know that if I can get to that moon, my one third of the circle of health is going to fill back up again every time I get a moon. So I don't, get to a hard spot and then feel like I'm stuck getting the moon and having to try to get back out. Like it fills me back up, or if I die, I'm only losing 5 coins. I think that that's another, and that's an innovation that they had talked about prior to this. But I think it really helps the flow of that exploration, is that it's, you're not starting back off at a set point, that the checkpoints are relatively generous as well, I found. So have you noticed anything in terms of the coin health? How does that feel? Does it change the way Mario feels by not having X number of extra lives?
Yeah, it was. And I didn't realize that at first, because I think the first time I died, I had like almost 1,000 coins. So I was like, oh, okay, I died. And then I hadn't at that actually the first time. Obviously I didn't know what was going to happen, but you see it count down in your coins, and then you get back in. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. So, but you also got to think, you got to use those coins. Well, you don't have to, but you can use those coins to buy things. So, eventually that'll be depleted. So you got to watch yourself, So it's kind of like a balancing act of some sorts. I mean, you don't have to buy those suits, at least not as far as I've seen so far in the gameplay that I've gone through. I don't know if they're necessary. Most of them look like they're just aesthetic. So, you have like, I got one from an amiibo, excuse me, but I bought a couple others that, they're just costumes as far as I can tell. I don't know if you've seen anything either in play-wise, or if you've read that costumes will do anything for you in the future.
So I haven't read anything in terms of that costumes need to, to unlock certain things. I've definitely seen my kids play around with a variety of costumes, and they both tend to seem to choose different costumes that for the same levels. So I think it is very much cosmetic. What amiibo did you use? Did you get one of the wedding amiibos, or did you scan an existing amiibo?
No, I scanned. I had a Luigi one, so I got the Luigi costume from that.
Oh, so do all the amiibos work?
I think I used all of them so far, and the ones that are like non-Mario of any kind are just like to give you coins. That's it.
Oh,
I have
okay.
a Diddy Kong, so I got a Diddy Kong costume. I got Donkey Kong, but he just gave me a coin, which is kind of weird, I thought. So, sorry.
They gave Diddy Kong a costume and Donkey Kong didn't get any respect, huh?
Maybe because Diddy Kong's maybe that kind of, as far as stature, he's a lot more Mario than Donkey Kong, because Donkey Kong's like super huge.
They could have given him a nice tie or something.
I guess, yeah. I think Diddy Kong has a tie, doesn't he? Or I don't know.
No, Diddy Kong has a shirt, doesn't he? I don't know.
Why
are we talking about Diddy Kong's clothes?
Because we're geeking out here. That's why.
Very true. Well, then, in true fashion, the reason that they are not allowing Donkey Kong to have a costume is that Paulina is the mayor of New Donk City, and she still is holding a grudge against Donkey Kong from way back in the original Donkey Kong. How's that for my headcanon there?
There you go. Swiss, you got any questions or anything?
Well, I was curious. You guys are talking a lot about the variety in the levels, and it doesn't sound like you've gotten far enough where this might be an issue, but I was curious as to whether you foresee much backtracking involved. Like, do you guys have you been gaining abilities where you're thinking, well, there's moons over here that I can't get yet, and later on in the game I'm going to have to jump back to access them, or anything like that?
I haven't seen anything yet, but it does look like that, because on some of the worlds that I've gone past already, there's some moons that I don't know how I'm supposed to get, and I don't know if I'm supposed to get like some other special ability to get to them. And then, like I said before, when I was stuck on that rooftop, I didn't know how to get out of there. There's like this huge like metal block that's in my way, and I don't know if I'm supposed to I can't climb it because you just kind of bounce off of it. So I'm not sure. DB, I don't know if you've seen anything.
So I think there certainly is the potential for backtracking. What I don't know, and what I've even listening to people who have reviewed the game, I don't know how necessary that is, right? That you can finish the game with less than 250 moons, right? That you hit 250 and you open up one of the additional bonus levels at the end. And if you hit 500, you open up another additional bonus level. So that those are the incentives of why you might go back and backtrack if you're trying to hit a certain threshold of moons. But in order to kind of see through the main quote unquote plot of Mario, I don't know that there'll be a whole lot of backtracking.
So actually, it's funny you said that because right before I turned it off, the last time I played, I had actually went back to it wasn't the first world, it was the second world, the one with the dinosaur in it. I forgot what it was called, but and I just wanted to go back and see if I could find more moons because in that desert one, when after I had collected like I think it was like 16 or something, you know, I thought that was the end, but then you know you could see all these other ones all around. So I was like, oh, because they actually give you like a little visual representation of the moons that you know as you collect them, you know. It ticks them off. So I had gotten all of them, and you go back to your ship and do all this kind of stuff. And then, you know, I thought I was going to fly away, but it just lets you kind of stay on the level, and you can fly away if you want and go to the next level, or you can, you know, stay on that level and keep doing them. And it basically wipes those tick marks off, and it's just blank. So I mean, and I think I found like maybe 4 or 5 more after that. So I mean, who knows like how many each level has? I don't know if there's an extra counter somewhere that you can check, but
Yeah, have
you
you
know how
run
many?
into the toad that you can pay 50 coins to get, you know, the tip of the
Oh,
next?
yeah,
Right, I think that's short of a guide and a wiki. I think that's probably the in-game system. Is that,
yeah,
you know, after you hit a certain threshold and you've got enough moons to be able to. So the kind of you know, the conceit of this is that you have a ship similar to, you know, the Morio head in Galaxy 2. You know, that you're powering up, and you need X number of moons to be able to power it up to get to the next world. And so those moons get increasingly high as you move from world to world. And so that's the threshold that you need to get to in terms of moons to progress.
yeah.
But there is a toad there where you can pay 50 coins to, and he'll mark on the map where one of the existing moons is within the level.
I also want to say, I think I saw something, one of the wedding amiibo, the new wedding amiibos, I think if you use that, it somehow gives you a map or an indicator for a moon or something like that. So that's another way they integrated that.
Nice. Yeah, there's actually, and then there's a little amiibo like power pad thing or whatever you want to call it. That's right next to the Toad that you can use your amiibos. Like I used the Donkey Kong and I used the Diddy Kong and the Luigi, and it actually said, all right, besides the costume, these guys are going to go out in that level. They're going to go out and find the star or the moons, excuse me. And then, you know, it takes like, I don't know, I forgot this said like 5 or 10 minutes or something. So you got to come back and then you'll get like a prompt when they're done. So you can go back and find those ones. And actually, that's what I did. I went back, I brought the map up, and it, you know, it actually plots out where, you know, where they're at. So I totally forgot about that. So yeah, that's another way that you can use your amiibos to do with.
That's a neat feature. I hadn't tried anything with the amiibos yet, so.
Yeah. So I think like after I finish like a level, I'll do that just so I can find the rest of them.
It's interesting that they make you wait for a few minutes, like delayed gratification.
Hey, they have to go out and explore. So
I kind of like it.
yeah, it's cool. So that's nice. You know, you can, and then you can just go on and play the game, and like I said, it prompts you. So DB, I mentioned earlier, you know, you have that nostalgia factor, and you know, from the past Mario games, and obviously there's like a whole bunch of mechanics from previous Mario games. Do you think that's hurting the game at all, or is it just does it help it that they kind of mashed everything together now?
You know, I don't know if it's hurting it, right? I mean, I think that because it is, we have not seen a real 3D Mario since Galaxy 2. You know, I don't know that there's this burnout feeling like people were getting on the new Super Mario, you know, 2D games that we've been, you know, kind of recycling over and over again. And I think the other piece that will help with burnout is the sheer kind of, I guess I'm going to say, inconsistency of the worlds, right? That there is no you know, tangible explanation for why this world is on the same planet as this other world, right? That New Donk City with humans is then next to something with these little, you know, Iceland cloud creatures on another ice, you know, world, but they're all on the same globe that you're navigating through, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's the hodgepodge of ideas that make it unique. And I've really enjoyed the whole cap mechanism, right? That the ability to take over something, you know, sometimes it's just to solve a very simple puzzle. Sometimes it's, you know, if you're a fish underwater and you are a blooper, you know, that you can see where they've put air bubbles for Morio to continue to swim through. But if you're swimming as a fish, you don't need that, and so you can kind of transverse it in different ways. So I think that there are definitely moments where you need the cap to kind of just navigate through the world, whether it's, you know, to get across a large chasm. But then there's also times when it seems to open up choice a little bit more than what it would without that cap.
Yeah, and the one other thing that I noticed, like when you start off that tutorial world and then you go to the like where the waterfall and the dinosaur is, and then into the desert. I mean, those worlds got progressively larger. Do you wonder, like, do you think like they're gonna get like super huge? Obviously, when you get to the city, that's probably gonna be like super big. But do you think it's like a progression thing, or you kind of jump around between like small worlds and medium-sized worlds and, you know, super huge worlds and stuff like that?
That's a good question. I guess I haven't seen that angle in any of the reviews that I've read. Swiss, have you seen that? You know, have they talked about the size of the worlds getting progressively bigger? It seems like
I've kind of gone dark as far as reviews because
You know, get
I'm getting enough spoilers as it is.
okay.
Just-
So, well, guess what? There's an ice world. Guess what? There's a water world. You know, I'm sorry, we're spoiling that for you. But I think that there, you know, it seems like the landscape of something like the water world is not as vast as the snow world, but then you start going underwater and you have a lot more, you know, the depth of that becomes different. So my guess is that you know, they can't progressively continue to get larger and larger. There's going to hit some type of cap.
Yeah.
You know, and so how they manage that throughout the game, I think, will be interesting to see what that does for the pacing.
Mind if I ask one more question?
Sure.
So the capping mechanism, I know you had mentioned that kind of kept things fresh and it was new. I was just curious what you guys thought, having both played Zelda as well, because going from kind of the Ocarina of Time, you know, to Skyward Sword flavor of Zelda, and then they kind of reinvented it with Breath of the Wild. That was a fresh experience. Is Cappy enough to really differentiate Odyssey from like the Galaxies and the Mario Sunshine and everything, or do you feel like they've always had a good variety in their gameplay?
Well, it's a tough question. I think I think it's really just a different mechanic. I mean, fundamentally, I mean, these games are pretty much, I don't want to say all the same, but they're pretty similar from Mario, from, you know, 64 to Sunshine to the Galaxies. Obviously, there's Galaxies. I think there's a bigger jump from Sunshine to Galaxy just because of the way the worlds are, because they're, you know, the round globes and these different shapes and stuff. This one, it kind of just goes back to the basics, I guess, if you want to call it, where you're just like straight on, you know, obviously in straight planes, but you can go vertical and you go underground and do all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it makes like a super huge difference. I don't know, maybe DB, what do you think?
So I don't think Cappy is the thing that makes it feel kind of revolutionary or evolutionary like Breath of the Wild. I think, to me, the thing that makes it break out of the Morio norm is the fact that when you get a moon, you stay within that exact same spot. You just, you know, it's like opening up a chest in Zelda. You get it and you keep on moving forward. You're not bounced back to a hub world. You know, you're not. So I think that the piece where I feel like this is Breath of the Wild, like for me, is the fact that it is so wide open that it just encourages you to go. You see that, you know, crazy geometry over on the side, go over and explore it. You know, I'm playing this a lot of the same ways that I played Breath of the Wild, is not following a plot, just kind of following scenery and discovering the world. And so I think that that's where the comparison is to me, not so much that the cap changes things like item durability and weapon degradation and crafting. You know, I think that the cap is, as Prime said, just another mechanism. It's not drastically different than, you know, grabbing onto the Stingray in Galaxy, or, you know, being able to have different power-ups that would allow you to fly across the chasm, right? I mean, there are ways in Mario 64 with the metal or the flying cap that you navigate the environment just the same. So I think the place where Cappy makes it unique is when you start exploring and not treating it like a hunt just for the moon.
Yeah.
That's a subtle and interesting point. I didn't. Well, that's kind of the first I learned about the moons behaving that way. But you're right. It would change it because it's just it definitely sounds like it shifts your perspective on how the environment is or what the moons are, and it's not just like an end goal like the tower in the original Super Mario Brothers or anything like that. The flagpole.
Yeah. We're still early in the game, so I mean that could change going down the through the game, where maybe Cappy gets upgrades and stuff like that, and you can do more with him. But I mean, we don't know so far. So now, if you're able to like throw your cap and take control of anything you wanted, because you can't right now, it's certain things in the worlds. Maybe that would have been like a game changer because you can just control whatever you wanted. That might kind of break the game though, especially with there are there's a time limit when you're controlling stuff, but still that could overall kind of break the game if you could just control anything, like say like a bird, you could just fly around, do whatever you want. So, but like I said, for now, we'll see.
Is there a time limit? I know like when you get like if you get a bullet bill,
yeah,
sure, but some of that feels like it's just the mechanism there. But being underwater as a blooper, I definitely was a whole lot longer in that person or in that creature, or the little caterpillar creature from one of another world. I spent most of the time in that.
Yeah, I know the dinosaur. You got kicked out after a while.
Yeah, that feels more. I mean,
he's too big. So
seems kind of gimmicky. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Prime, I'm going to turn that question back to you about is this too samey? Do you feel like this is a Breath of the Wild type of revolution for Mario, or is it just another in the string of good Mario games?
For me right now, it seems more it's like on that same string of Mario games with obviously different things thrown in there. But I mean, to me that's fine. I mean, I like I said, as soon as I started playing this game, I was a kid again. I'm able to jump around. I'm doing, of course, I think everybody did this. They did the triple jump right away. So the backflip jump that you can do, and all the normal moves that you had like in the old 64 games and Sunshine and all that. But yeah, I still think it's a great game. To be honest with you, if you ask me right now whether I would pick Game of the Year for this, I wouldn't. As great as the game is, I'd have another game on my mind that and we'll talk about that later in some of the podcasts, down the road. But it's still a great game though. I still love it. It just like I said, the mix of stuff, the 3D and the 2D. For right now, it's pretty cool. It was pretty jarring actually when I went into the 2D. When I first went into it, I was fine, and I'm like going and doing things, whatever, and then I like jumped too far off the screen where you actually flip back into 3D, and it like jarred me. I was like, whoa, that was just weird, because you just pop back into a 3D Mario. So it's pretty cool though. I'm liking it so far. So DB, if you had anything else, or Swiss, if you had any other questions, I think maybe we'll move on to the next game. Nothing? All right. So let's jump into Assassin's Creed Origins. And I believe, DB, this is your game that you had a chance to play?
Yeah, so I picked this up this weekend and had a chance to spend a couple of late nights with it over the past couple of days. And I was really paying for it at work today. Man, I needed the caffeine because I was, it is one of those games similar to so many other open world games where you just think, oh, well, I did that, but then there's something else over here, or there's another icon on my map, and I'll just keep going and keep exploring.
The age-old problem.
I know, right? It's a wonderful problem, and this game This game is beautiful, and so Assassin's Creed. So here's my history with Assassin's Creed. I love the idea of it. The last Assassin's Creed game that I have finished is 3. Is the Revolutionary War one. I've played them all except for Rogue, and I have enjoyed them, but I've always found their mission structure a little limiting. I definitely, when you get into that pathing of, well, this is the way that the designers wanted you do this mission, whether that's a stealth mission or an attack mission. I've enjoyed that, but it also has not been kind of the open world aspect. So when Assassin's Creed Origin was being announced and press, previews and things, the whole aspect of it being more open world was something that was really interesting to me. And then you throw that into ancient Egypt, and the history buff in me is loves the idea of wandering around in a recreated space. And then they announced that there were going to be rare items and legendary items and purples and golds and loot, and the Destiny Borderlands fan in me went, oh. And so, all of that kind of coalesced into what this game is. And to me, this game is a great playground of systems. And I still can't really, okay, so I'm not that far in, right? I'm still in kind of the intro area. My character's still in single digits in terms of level, but I've been really enjoying the exploration and kind of picking out some side missions and hunting and trying to, you're finding there's not towers, there's cliffs to climb.
Makes sense.
Yeah, right. But it is the piece of it that, and I was just listening to Waypoint's podcast earlier this week as well, and their concern or their beef with it was the whole kind of the way it opens. That it starts with what seems to be a cutscene, and you're starting to get some story about the pharaoh, and then it comes to a flashback or a flash forward, and suddenly it's in this little tutorial of combat. And then it spits you out into this little town. And so it doesn't hold your hand a whole lot. And I think the truth is that this whole little town that I've been in is basically the tutorial. It's a multiple hour kind of introduction to, you've got some tombs to explore, you've got some animals to hunt, you've got some people to rescue, you've got stealth to do, you've got some crafting to do, and so it gives you, it doles this all out as you're kind of back in this community. And so the whole story behind it, the overall plot, I'm okay with not knowing, because really what I'm enjoying is kind of just existing in this world, right? Like yesterday I spent time, I saw some place that I thought I wasn't supposed to go to, so of course I went there. It was a tomb to raid, which also happened to be connected to another mission that I hadn't highlighted on my, on my quest log. So I started filling in that mission, but it was, I kind of came in through the back door and started picking off enemies. The combat is enjoyable. It's a little different. So it's the typical Assassin's Creed combat almost has felt kind of rhythmic, not quite as good as Batman or Shadow of Mordor in terms of that kind of punching rhythm, but there's been that kind of attack, parry, block combo that has been going on. And so here you've got a heavy attack, you've got a light attack. Those aspects Swiss almost feel Horizon Zero Dawn-like in terms of the heavy and light attacks.
So that I was going to follow up with was the comparisons to Horizon Zero Dawn, because as you've described it, that's what I think would be the most analogous that I've played this year.
In terms of the open world aspect, or the combat? Yeah. Yes, I've been thinking a lot about this compared to Horizon Zero Dawn, and the thing that has struck me, at least in these first couple of nights with it, is one of the reasons that the concerns are the gaminess of Horizon Zero Dawn of I can do all this hunting, but I can only climb on the shiny objects, right? So I think that where in Assassin's Creed Origin and in most of the Assassin's Creed series, you pretty much can run up a building, right? Like you can jump on all kinds of ledges that really should or shouldn't exist in real life. And so in this case, last night I ended the game climbing up a giant cliff for 10 minutes because there was a synchronous point there that I was trying to get to and trying to figure out my way around it. And there wasn't there wasn't the Horizon Zero Dawn or Uncharted kind of, here's the shiny ledge that I need to jump to next. It pretty much allowed you to explore and gain that. It was very Zelda-like in that aspect. I think so. In that way, the exploration I've enjoyed more in Assassin's Creed. I think the flip side is I also feel more powerful here than I did as Aloy in Horizon Zero Dawn. And so I know when I was early in that game in Horizon Zero Dawn, the monsters, the creatures, the robotic dinosaurs, they scared me, not in like a spook type of way or in a way like Prime wearing his mask at the beginning of the show, but very much in they were more powerful than me and they could take me out relatively easy.
You're
And
cautious.
I was very cautious and tense. Where in this game, I may be hiding, but I'm a predator setting a trap. Where in Horizon Zero Dawn, at least early on, you feel like you are the lesser creature, and here there's a little more power fantasy there.
In a way, though, it sounds like that might be, in both cases, the intent of the developers, because in Horizon Zero Dawn, it's mostly you're out in the wild, and that tension of will I be able to survive is important. And then with Assassin's Creed, like you said, this is the power fantasy. You are the predator, the wolf among the sheep, so to speak. And so it sounds like in both cases they're meeting their experience goals, in other words, for the player.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I do want to make clear that even as I'm saying the power fantasy about Assassin's Creed, yesterday as I was exploring, I came to a lake and I was very cautious about the lake, right? Because I've seen enough YouTube videos of giant alligators, and I've read other reviews about the whole aspect that there's a level system that some reviewers were talking about going up against enemies that were 2 levels above them, and even with good gear getting trounced, right? So there is that power fantasy, but only if you're staying competitive within the level. And even just knowing that there's the potential of an alligator, it brought back that kind of that fragileness that I had in Horizon Zero Dawn as well. So I was skimming the edge of the water. I was trying to move away from it as much as possible. It definitely was part of my thought process while I was playing that. So I think the one thing that I do want to bring up to you guys, since you haven't played this, is one, I'm curious where you guys are on the Assassin's Creed games in general, if they're series you've enjoyed, but I think by the nature of this, for people that are out there listening, if you haven't, or you've kind of burned out on Assassin's Creed, but you've enjoyed other open world types of games, that there's probably something here that you'll enjoy. The other piece is, because it's a Ubisoft game, I can't help myself from like picking out all the different other Ubisoft properties that this plays like, right? Like, so I have an eagle that I can send up in the sky to go around. And at first it got me thinking about Far Cry Primal, where you could turn into, you took your spirit of a bird and you could fly around and mark territory. But then it also plays out like Wildlands, where you've got your drone, right, that you can send up and mark bad guys, and your eagle will actually take some of these out or stun them if you upgrade it well. So then there's the skill tree part. So that eagle upgrade of attacking an enemy is part of this big skill tree system, which feels very RPG like, very kind of Diablo like, in terms of you need X number of, you need to open up this node to be able to get to these next 3 nodes on your skill tree. And that also kind of falls along the line of things like the Division, in terms of some of that aspect. In the Division, there's also that piece of where your friends are and where there's others on the community. One of the things that I need to dig this out, is one of the things on the map that I'm finding are markers that look to be player names or PSN names, and maybe that's populating it with somebody, but these are you know, where somebody was. There's a heart attached to it. You know, so I don't know quite what it's pulling in there, but there is some social aspect there. And then you've got, you know, the Far Cry, the traditional Assassin's Creed piece of taking over encampments and, you know, other pieces. Even the For Honor aspect of the combat, right? The heavy and the light attacks and the shield blocks and dodges. You know, that there are in all Ubisoft properties, right? There's a mishmash of their other game systems there, but it definitely does it in a way that feels unique because it is. I think the setting really helps with that. Um, so you guys, is this, you know, I know that it's not a game that either one of you have picked up. You know, is this even on your radar? Is the Assassin's Creed game something that you've burned out on or never really enjoyed?
Actually, I finished and played the first one, the very first one, and then I was probably like 3/4 of the way through or so, the two, before I stopped playing it. And then I just kind of fell off after that. But actually, this one does look really interesting, just because I've always liked the Egyptian culture and, you know, civilization. So I definitely, this is probably one I'll pick up. And actually, I do have some of the other ones just from the games with gold stuff that, you know, you get for free. But I definitely want to pick this one up eventually, especially, and I know maybe you know this is going to interest you, with the educational mode that they're going to have coming next year, where you can just walk around the world, and I'm assuming like you can look at things and, you know, little pop-ups will come up or something. I don't know how it's going to work, but that sounds pretty cool too. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think that mode, it sounds great. You know, I heard about that before I purchased the game, and it's coming in the spring. There are already spots and times where if you're in a tomb, you know, you'll pull up an artifact and it'll give you a little bit of information about it, or you'll find somebody's journal and it's talking about, you know, this god there. There's, you know, it's got almost that kind of Tomb Raider aspect of giving you a little bit of context and history around some of the items you're finding. So again, you know, just like some of the news stories that were out there of a lot of the hieroglyphics being accurate, or at least relatively accurate, you know, I think that there's a lot of care that went into creating this world. Swiss, do you have any thoughts, or is this kind of off your radar?
I played the original Assassin's Creed, and I believe if I didn't complete it, I think I might have completed it, but if I didn't, I got close. So I played a significant amount of the first one. And then I just wasn't interested in moving on. Like it felt after a while like a chore to complete the missions. And I don't know if that was just because that was like the first iteration of it, and then the missions seemed to feel the same to me, and it got a little bit repetitive. Or whether or not, you know, the game has grown in scale. Every time, like, I saw, you know, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and it's like, oh, that'd be cool to play, but it just hasn't really. There's always been other games that I've kind of jumped to, but it sounds like the setting is intriguing in this one, but I don't know if that'd be enough to carry me through. I don't know enough about the later Assassin's Creed games to know if the series structure has kind of grown and matured enough where it'd be worth kind of jumping back in. But we'll see. If I do get it, it'll probably be when it's on like a sale or something.
Yeah, I think this is probably you know, I played Syndicate 2 years ago. I played Unity. You know, all of those feel or felt very much within the same mold of the original games. You know, this feels like the first time that they've really kind of broken that mold, right? This is 2 years of development, or, you know, they delayed it for an additional year, so there's some additional time there. This is the Black Flag crew that spent a lot of time on this, so they've definitely had time to think about that system. And it does it. I mean, it still feels like Assassin's Creed. You know, I don't want to sell that short of. It's still, you know, you still got markers on your map and people to assassinate, and when you're in a loading screen, you're still running on the animus of this virtual world. But at the same time, the way the quests are doled out, it feels a whole lot more open, right? Back to Mario. It feels a whole lot more open in terms of you can approach a mission, or you can choose which mission you want to do in any real order.
So, is there any multiplayer in this game at all that you know of?
So I think that, so I've been looking as we've been talking about this. There is not multiplayer in the traditional like, Brotherhood type of multiplayer, or mode. There's not multiplayer in the Unity type of mode where you can have another person going around with you at different points in time or in smaller areas. I think those the kind of blue markers on my map that looked like gamer tags. I think that there is some way where you could compete with somebody asynchronously, like they did some feat at certain amount of time, or survived X number of waves. I know that there is some type of asynchronous multiplayer that I've read about, but I have not experienced it yet.
Okay, and then just one other thing, as far as like the past games, or a few that you've played, how does it? I guess how's like the movement and the control? Does it feel a little bit more fluid? I guess going back to Mario once again, or has it evolved at all?
I think that in terms of the combat, yeah, I think it has, because there is no longer the parry button. It feels a little more involved. As somebody who enjoyed kind of the brainlessness of Assassin's Creed combat before, right? Strike, strike, parry, wait for them to attack, parry it, strike again. This time there's a little more to it because of the heavy and light attacks. Also because of the weapon variety. So you've got spears and clubs and maces and scythes, sheaths, and sickles.
Bow and arrow, right?
Yep, bow and arrow, right? So you can have
Staple.
heavy. Yeah, you can have heavy weapons or lighter, faster weapons, and then you can equip one or two. You have a shield that does the blocking, or you can do a push with it if you upgrade it. And then you have bow and arrows, and your bow and arrows even are a little different. I have already hit some different bow and arrows where I started with kind of the intro bow and arrow they give you, which is more of a stealth. There's a long drawback, and you can hold it to try to get a headshot or as you're hunting something. And then there are what they call like warrior bow and arrows, which is almost like a quick shot, and you're spitting them out relatively fast. The accuracy and the amount of damage they do is not as strong, but in a combat situation, they also make it really nice to be able to kind of stagger somebody, hit them with a few bow and arrows, catch them off base, and then follow up with a weapon as you swap back and forth. So there's definitely more variety here than there has been in past Assassin's Creed combats.
How about just like the parkour aspect when you're moving around the world? Does that feel pretty good? I know sometimes, in like the older ones, to me, it got in the way, like a little, like when you're trying to like jump over something or grab onto something. It almost seemed kind of slow a little bit.
No, this feels, this is what I'm enjoying doing, right? I'm climbing around on stuff. I'm jumping from spot to spot. Yes, the parkour aspect feels really smooth. There's only been a few times where I've found myself running up to a wall thinking, oh, I should be able to climb that, but then I can't, or it doesn't. There's not a hold there to grab onto. Okay. It very much is very fluid. It hasn't kind of taken me out. It's been a distraction in terms of, well, let's see if I can climb over here, but not breaking the flow of the game.
Cool. All right, Swiss, you got any other questions for Assassin's Creed Origins?
No. If you guys are ready, we can move on to the next game unless you have something else you want to add, DB.
No, let's finish up with our, I've been killing people in ancient Egypt, and you've been slaughtering them in more recent history. So tell us about Wolfenstein 2.
Right. So I probably would have gotten Mario on October 27th if we weren't in holiday, waiting for Santa mode for my kids. So I ended up getting a game that for Daddy that only I could play, after bedtime. So I don't usually play shooters very often. I know Prime is like a big Call of Duty fan and whatnot, but for me, they're fewer and farther between. But the ones that I do play, I tend to focus on the games that are single player experiences. So last week, Prime and Zeus talked a bit about what they'd like to see developers focus on in when they're making games and designing games, rather than just complaining about the latest microtransaction scandal and whatnot. So this game, I think, hits that note for me in that there's not a lot of openness. It's not going to try to pretend to be Assassin's Creed or Mario or Horizon Zero Dawn or anything like that. You start there's a cutscene, it flows you into the level, you go through the level, and you have like an exit cutscene. There's a little bit sometimes of, I guess, set pieces, so to speak. Nothing on the scale of Call of Duty yet that I've seen. But it knows what it is, and it's a single player first person shooter, and it just tries to do it well and makes it enjoyable. So, I think it uses the id Tech 6 engine, so the game is pretty. It feels fluid when I'm moving around. I like some of the animations that they have for Billy. When you start the game, it basically picks up right after the last game left off. And I hadn't played Wolfenstein: The New Order, but I don't really feel like I had to. They have a cutscene that kind of brings you up to speed, and then you just go. So you're literally starting the game kind of beat up from the last boss battle in the previous game, and you're wheeling around in a
wheelchair, yeah.
Wheelchair. Yep. So they do stuff like when you're wheeling around, he sets the gun on his lap, and you can see that, and you move around, then he picks it up. Just little things like that are nice. But it focuses on just getting it right, and it feels definitely like a very old school shooter. So I definitely have a different vibe than when I played like Call of Duty Modern Warfare or something. I'm wandering around, I'll clear an area out, and then I can go around and I can search for hidden packs of ammo and hidden health packs or armor, which it's been a while since I played a game like that. It definitely made me reminisce about the original Wolfenstein, like way back in the day. So I feel the lineage there. As for the combat, I did see, like in a preview video, they wanted it to be where you could employ multiple strategies as you go through the level, or have multiple paths to completing a level. I've kind of seen some of that. I've only found that I can be fairly methodical and to succeed. But that might just be because I'm not a very good first-person shooter player, and I can't run and gun so well. But it definitely they'll introduce a new mechanic, and you can definitely tell that they want you to experiment with it, and you can definitely see the benefits versus the punishments of employing said mechanic. So, for example, early on in the game, you get your first hatchet, which is your melee weapon, and then it introduced the silent kill. And there's some areas in the game where if you don't do a silent kill, you're probably going to fail. And they're pretty good about keeping that interesting too. I've gone up behind somebody and employed the silent kill with the hatchet, and I'm seeing multiple different brutal ends of Nazis. So that's kind of fun. As it kind of brings me to the whole tone aspect of the game, which is, when I talked about, I didn't play the last game, so I had a little bit of a cutscene to bring me up to speed. It's unimportant. The story isn't unimportant. It hits the summer popcorn blockbuster action flick kind of tone, where I'm the good guy. I'm all-American hero, and these are the bad guys. We know Nazis are bad, but they introduce a few extra cutscenes to say, hey, you really want to stop these Nazi guys. They're bad dudes, and you just go to it. There's it's very explicit in its morality. Nazis bad, you're good, and so the story isn't as important as just playing through the game. I've also found that it's difficult and I die a lot. Part of that's probably my skill, but part of it is like I said, the reward aspect of employing a good strategy. And I'm not to say that the game is only going to be methodical. I've gone through some levels where I've run and gunned, and I've gone through some levels where I've had to slow it down. So the checkpoints are fairly generous. So when I have died, it hasn't felt like I've had to go back and backtrack a great deal. So you can, I feel like there's different within a level. It feels like you have a sequence of, for lack of a better term, checkpoints, but the level feels like a series of obstacles to overcome or rooms to clear out, if that makes sense.
Can I ask you a question about the story? So
Sure.
So one of the things that does interest me about this is I played the first one. I didn't finish it, but I really liked what Machine Games did, both gameplay wise, but also story wise. Right, that they added more to it than just what Wolfenstein's crazy Nazi aspect was. So one of the things I've been reading about this is how it humanizes Nazis, not in a sympathy way, but in like that these are not monsters. These are humans. These are men. These are women. These are people making deliberate choices that we find deplorable, and that it is not just kind of making. I mean, I think there are some people when they're like one of the main women villains who's kind
Right.
of over the top, but I think from what I've been reading is that there is a little more nuance to that depiction. Do you see that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wouldn't say that the nuance makes you question your motives per se, or your wanting to go through. But for example, as you go through, there's little tidbits throughout the level, which I like because it feels like a single player experience when I can limited exploration, but find little. Most of it's journals or letters that you get, or diaries from the enemy. And there's one where the fellow is like writing to his wife, and he says he misses her, and he has a son, and he says, oh, he should be just old enough to where he can start talking now, and that would kind of blow your mind, and I hope I get home to you. But then he follows it up with the terrorist who's you. They're inferior, and it's good that we can wipe them out, and you can feel on the one hand he's a person, but on the other hand you can see like his little bit of a brainwashing effect, if like somebody in the SS would have been.
Yeah, no, I think that's to me that's the interesting distinction, right? Is it's not just a caricature or a stereotype of Nazis bad, right? It's showing how those people are making those choices, right? Like BJ Blazkowicz is Jewish, right? So that's his inferior aspect that the terrorist has.
Yeah, I would say that the main villain so far that I've seen doesn't invoke any sympathy. But
they're just straight up bad.
Yeah, it's unambiguous about that. But no, I found I enjoy finding the journals and the diaries from the enemy and reading them. I like the setting as the alternate reality timeline wherein Nazis actually win. I guess they nuke New York and the United States surrenders. So that that's interesting. And as far as the characters themselves, I don't mean to imply that it's just a dumb action flick and the plot doesn't matter. Because action movies, you enjoy the characters. Die Hard's great because of John McClane, right? But you know, I don't think anybody's comparing Die Hard with Citizen Kane here. So I put it in that, and I say that in a positive way. It knows what it is, and it's an action flick. It does it well. I don't know the characters well. I guess as DB does, since he played the first one. But in the intro cutscenes, I'm interested and invested in the characters. So it's unimportant as far as like I'm interested in seeing what happens, but you know, the game, it's not a shooter. It's not a movie with shooter aspects. It's definitely a shooter with that little action movie cutscenes.
Yeah, no, right.
supporting.
I mean, this is a balls to the wall type of shooter that revels in it, right? I mean, that is
Right.
the lineage here. And I don't mean to make it sound like they're trying to make the Nazi characters identifiable, or that they're trying to tell spin an important, this is not Firewatch or Journey or something where they're trying to, this isn't even, there's more action here, I think, than in something like the original BioShock. But I think that what I found within the first game is that they take their time to craft characters that feel like they could be real.
Yes, I think that's a good way of putting it. That's an excellent way of putting it. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask. So, do you feel like do you think you're going to kind of keep pushing through this and see this story to the end? Has it engaged you that far?
The story, I mean, the story is interesting. I want to see what happens. But for me, it's just fun to be overcoming each level. You go to see Die Hard because it's like the action and the action set pieces, and you want to see how John McClane gets through Nakatomi Tower or whatever, and how he's going to beat the bad guy. But ultimately the plot's very important. So I keep going back to Die Hard because that's how I feel. I feel like John McClane going through, and it's fun. It's brutal, and violent. But it's been a lot of fun, and I have basically stopped playing Horizon Zero Dawn and Zelda, and this has been what I've been playing. So that should tell you something.
So a couple things real quick. So you mentioned how some of the levels were pretty difficult. Is there a difficulty setting in this game?
Yeah, they have the classic start where you can choose your difficulty setting, and you have BJ with like the bonnet and like the pacifier in his mouth. Or, I was ambitious and I cranked it up from the default setting up 1. So it's like basically right in the middle of difficulties. There's still like 3 difficulties above me, but there's like 3 below, I think, something like that. So, and I'm not as great with the first person shooter. I'm playing on the PS4, so I can't like run and get headshots as I run through the level. That's not going to happen with me. So I appreciate the fact that I can do like some relatively stealthy maneuvering, and you can lean out and shoot and pop back in, and the AI is not bad. I find when they actually see me, one of the first reactions the bad guys have is to jump to the side and get behind something, rather than just stand there and shoot me and wait for me to shoot them. So
nice.
It's been good.
Cool. How far are you in, or like how much have you played of it?
I think I'm about 3 or 4 basically major levels in. Like I said, each level kind of has points at which you kind of get to a good stopping point. But yeah, I think I'm in the 3rd major level.
Cool.
The as far as like different tracks, like the levels are built like they're somewhat linear. You know, you're going from point A to point B, but you know, I found the way that the planks walk. You know, if I were to have backtracked as I explore to go back and find like more armor or whatever, you know, I could say, oh, this staircase would have led me around this way, and I could have maybe snuck via this way rather than, you know, distracting somebody over here and setting a trap by this door. So is it, you know, something where it's like, it's fun probably to go back, and it would go back to experiment, but it's not like anything drastic where it's like a whole, you know, wow, I didn't know that there's this whole half of the map over here. It hasn't seemed that large yet. And I'm not saying that it won't, but.
Just more of a multiply path, you know, you could choose from, to get to your point. All right, cool. DB, any other questions?
No, I think that I love the fact that we each had played some of the big 3 releases this past week, and it gives everybody listening a chance to get a little bit of flavor and perspective. And the fact that we're, you know, the Swiss is playing kind of out of his normal genre, I think says a lot about Wolfenstein, and its you know, its availability, its approachableness, but also the ability of it to kind of draw somebody in.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I mean, spoiler alert for a future episode of E2KG, but it's not going to be my game of the year. But I'm glad I picked it up, and you know, it's I felt like playing something different. I felt like playing a shooter, and I go back to you know, it knows what it wants to be, and it's trying to make the best experience for that it can be. So it wants to be an action flick shooter, and it is. So that's tip of the cap, Machine Games.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely, well, this Wolfenstein and then Assassin's Creed. I definitely want to pick up both of these eventually. I never did play the New Order, so I definitely want to go back and play that. I think the last one I played was what was it, Enemy Territory, and that was like a long time ago. So I only played a little bit of that one back on the PC when I was still doing PC games. So yeah, I definitely want to pick these up, you know, give them a try. They both sound like they're, you know, excellent games, and obviously both of these, you know, if you're into reviews, you know, they get great reviews. I'm not a big review guy, but you know, I do just kind of look at them after the fact, and you know, they're getting great reviews. So all right, guys. So I think that's gonna. Oh, DB.
So Prime, is Wolfenstein 2 a Switch game for you next spring when it comes out to Switch?
Oh, that's right. I forgot it's coming out too. So yeah, it might be actually. Maybe I can, you know, get the New Order before that and run through that, because I like to, you know, obviously with this game it might actually kind of help a little bit to play the previous one. But yeah, it's definitely going to be on my radar. So yeah. All right, guys. Any last words on anything tonight? Anything maybe else you've been playing real quick? No? All right. I think that's going to be the end for episode number 20 of Enough to Keep Going. Please keep on the network here. This coming Thursday, we'll have E2KG in 30. That's our news podcast where we try to get through the news stories that we've found interesting.
Okay, Swiss, do you have audio? This is the end of the show. This is how we know that we've gotten kicked off the network, is there's no audio left for anybody. So.
Oh, I heard you, DB.
Okay. So, yeah, you can't, and Prime can't hear us. So this is a good sign that you need to come back on Thursday to hear the news that Prime is talking about, because it got him talking. And now we need to find out what he's going to be talking about. So again, this is Enough to Keep Going. We are here every Tuesday and Thursday evenings on the GWW, the Geeks Worldwide Network, and we're glad to be here. And until Thursday and until next Tuesday, we are always, no matter if we've got a mask on or not, we are enough to keep going.